Welcome to Totes Professional Gaming, where we dive into games like demons through a portal, except we're not very good at it. I have a real soft spot for when big AAA publishers try their hand at something a little quirky. We're talking about those rare gems where they step away from the big sequels and microtransactions. It's such a shame that more of them don't take a bit of a risk with weird niche projects, because that's where innovation can really flourish. Enter Kunitsu-Gami, Path of the Goddess. Now this isn't your typical AAA fare. Think of it as a weird love child of tower defense and action combat, but with a hefty dose of Japanese myth and beautiful visuals. Sure, it's not going to sell millions of copies, but who cares? It's a beautiful oddity and I'm here for it. So what's Kunitsu-Gami all about? Well, it's a very focused game. You play as So, a warrior tasked with clearing a path for a goddess who's fleeing from a demonic force. Sounds pretty standard, right? There's more to it than that. The game plays out in levels where the goddess starts at one end of the map and you need to clear her path while protecting her from evil spirits. At first, it feels like a classic tower defense. Clear the corruption, kill some demons, collect spirit orbs, and use them to give the goddess a bit of a head start. It sounds simple enough. But then night falls, and things get spicy. Cue the action combat. You have to jump in and hack away at the hordes of enemies using So's combat skills. His combat style is inspired by an ancient Japanese ceremonial dance called Kagura. This isn't your typical button mashing combo fest. No, no. The combat is graceful, flowing, and surprisingly simple. Just two buttons and a few combos, but it feels fantastic to control, and I found myself thoroughly enjoying it. There's a kind of beauty to the simplicity, plus it leaves you room to focus on the real strategy of the game, managing your troops. As you explore and defeat enemies, you can free villagers who are stuck in cocoons. Seriously, what's with the cocoons? These villagers can be turned into combat units, archers, gunners, melee warriors, sumos, and even shamans. It's a bit like assembling your own little army of misfits. You can assign these villagers specific roles and direct them to strategic points on the map to defend against the nightly demonic onslaught. So how does the game evolve? Well, it's surprisingly long, about 15 to 20 hours depending on how thorough you want to be. The game keeps things fresh by introducing new mechanics and twists as you progress. Early levels are a walk in the park with just one gate to defend, but as you move forward, things get more complicated. You'll face multiple gates, changing enemy types, and even environmental hazards. Poison swamps, crossing rivers on boats, and fighting a literal tree that spawns enemies. Yes, a tree. But it's all done in such a way that the difficulty ramps up perfectly. And don't even get me started on the enemies. There's a massive bestiary of terrifying creatures inspired by Japanese yokai myths. These demons aren't just thrown together, they're beautifully animated and intricately designed. You can even unlock models of these creatures in a gallery. Now, I don't usually bother with that sort of thing, but I couldn't help but sit there admiring them. It's like Capcom knew they had some incredible designs on their hands, so they made sure you could appreciate them properly. The environments are equally stunning. They're not super detailed in the traditional sense, but there's something incredibly charming about them. They feel like carefully painted Japanese landscapes, and there's a real balance between nature and architecture. It's like someone thought, let's make a game that's as pretty as a postcard. The contrast between the serenity of these settings and the chaos of the demon hordes works beautifully. Now here's where things take a bit of a misstep. The village rebuilding system. After you complete a level, you're tasked with rebuilding the village by assigning villagers to various construction projects. It's basically a glorified click and wait mechanic, and it starts to feel like something you'd see in a mobile game. It's not optional either. If you want to progress, you need to get that sweet, sweet currency. So prepare for a lot of hopping between villages, clicking things, and waiting for them to be done. It's a bit tedious and drags the experience down, which is a shame because the rest of the game is so thoughtfully paced. But here's the thing that makes Kunitsu-Gami feel special. There's a whole side of the game that's about the vibes. From the music to the fighting style, there's so much love and care put into the little details. I mean, there's a section where you can view Japanese sweets in the game's menu. Not to eat, just to look at. I mean, they could have just left it at here's some sweets, but no, there's lore about them. Where they came from, what they represent. It's ridiculous. And now I'm hungry. Ultimately, Kunitsu-Gami is a game that's more about what it evokes than what it actually is. It's not a game that's going to blow your mind with its mechanics, although don't get me wrong, it plays wonderfully, but it's the little touches, the fighting style, the music, the enemies, and yes, even the sweets that'll stick with you long after you've put the controller down. It's a game that proves the value of those weird little projects that big publishers sometimes take a chance on. It's a quirky, beautiful, thoughtful game that stands out in a sea of formulaic AAA releases. I wholeheartedly recommend it, especially if you're into action strategy games that have a bit of heart. It's the kind of game that leaves a mark on you, and that's a rare thing these days. Thank you so much for watching our video. Have a think about liking or subscribing, but more importantly, tell us what you thought of Kunitsu-Gami.